Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Human Challenge, where we explore all the human challenges in today's world, the challenges of being human, and how we can challenge ourselves to be more human for the greater good. I'm your host, Vanessa Ferlano, and today we are speaking with Leah Rampy, author of Earth and Soul. Welcome to the show, Leah.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
Thank you, and thank you for joining me. I am today in my outdoor office. So I'm always grateful to invite guests, and I always joke I'm in Sault Ste. Marie in the lands of the Anishinaabe, and we spend about 8 months of the year in winter. So when summer is here, this is where I am. Everything is outdoors, and I'm only in the outdoor office. And where are you based, Leah?
I live in Shepherdstown, West Virginia, a little over an hour from Washington, D.C. We're actually in the metro area, so we're kind of on the Potomac River where Maryland and Virginia and West Virginia all come together. And I will say that we have been in a very hot period of time right now. So the climate chaos that is part of the subtitle of the book, Living Amid Climate Chaos. Yeah, that's kind of where we are, along with many other people across the United States and certainly in countries around the world. So we're in the heat zone.
Absolutely. And I definitely noticed that in your book, that is really what you were talking about. How do we nurture our climate, our world, and how do we use our connection with the world to really help things like climate change and then make the world a better place. And so I would love for you to share with us a little bit more about how you did that throughout your book, and also because I know it's been pretty successful so far. So I would love to hear a little bit more about that.
Sure. Well, thank you, Vanessa. Well, let me say that even though climate chaos is in the title, I want to be clear that it's really not a book about climate change or biodiversity loss, ecosystem loss. Those are all really important. I think they're important to me. They're important to all of us. And those are ongoing challenges that we face. But I was not setting out to write a book to say, so how do we address that and what do we do? My sense was that we have become so deeply disconnected from the living world around us, and we've forgotten the connections that we have. And therefore, we don't really know how to live fully connected in this world. Now, I mean, I say that, and it's also ironic because we are never fully disconnected from this world. So I want to be clear that that is a direction I'm inviting people into considering, this capacity that we have for deep connections to the world, understanding, we're breathing air, we're drinking water, the plants we eat are becoming our cells. We are never disconnected, but we forget that we are connected. And I think that's the source of so much of the challenge that we face. We have othered ourselves from the living world. And when we other ourselves, then we see that that's a way to use the world for our own wants. And that's, it's breaking the world, but it's breaking our hearts too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that was one of the things that really resonated with me when I read the book was this idea of the interconnectedness. We are one. I'm a certified mindfulness meditation teacher, and my practices, my training came from Buddhism, and that is Buddhism. That is what mindfulness is. It's that sense of oneness, that interconnectedness. The connection to ourselves, connections to each other, connections to the world. And all that really plays together. And so I felt that sense reading through your book, the intention to really remind us and remind us that we're connected, and in all the different ways that you did that, through different, almost like historical context. There was different indigenous stories and tales kind of woven throughout. And so I think it was I felt reading it was a very holistic kind of approach, and just these different perspectives of how we can really remember and remind ourselves that we do have this connection. I remember the beginning in one of the earlier chapters of the book, there was the activity. I can't remember what it was called, but it was like, why don't you just try laying in your yard and mapping out this little 4x4 square and just sit and observe over time and see the life that happens in that. And I remember I didn't set out in my backyard the next day. I have my little garden and I was just doing yoga in under a tree, and I didn't set this intention to I'm going to map it out. But when I was sitting there, it came up for me and I was like, oh yeah, like what is happening in this little patch under my tree? And these are just very simple ways to remind us of that connection. And I appreciated that throughout the book when I went through it.
Isn't it amazing what we can see when we slow down? And, it may take a while for us to move out of our busy minds and, stop trying so hard to make something happen, which is often a tendency that we have, rather than sitting, being open and available and seeing what comes to us, seeing what wants to be seen by us. I took this as a kind of a practice that was expanded incredibly upon by David George Haskell, who wrote The Forest Unseen. And he, as a scientist, spent a year with a very small area in an old growth forest in Tennessee. And at the end of the book, he says something like, after visiting that place nearly every day for a year, I can see that I won't live long enough to really know and understand all the life that is in that particular place. And that was jaw-dropping for me. So I began to encourage this kind of practice in retreats and pilgrimages that I was leading, just to invite people into that, to take a deep breath and stop and sit and see what is all around us, because this is an amazingly abundant and beautifully diverse world in which we live.
Yeah, absolutely. And um, you mentioned the pilgrims and uh, the retreats that you run, and hoped you could share a little bit more about that.
Sure. So I've led retreats for many years to a number of different places with the intention of inviting people to spend some time away, take a step out of the busyness of our lives and to come together in a place that is often a very beautiful place, that perhaps is a place of pilgrimage for many other people, and to be open, present, connected. And doing that with other people, it's kind of like when we do mindfulness meditation with others. There can be something really special about others holding the space that also helps us to go more deeply into that silence. And I think that's true when we are together on pilgrimages. And then that's kind of another way of suggesting that you have to go somewhere to find what is beautiful and rich and sacred. And of course, that's not really true. It's all holy ground. And so then I've begun collaborating with a colleague, Beth Norcross, and she's one who first kind of challenged me into this. What can we do close to home? So what would a pilgrimage close to home look like? And how would you engage in a wander, a walk, a sit with kind of that pilgrim heart and mind, that curiosity, the idea that the way is made by walking, that the destination is not the goal, it's the walking that is the invitation, and being present to all that is. So it takes us out of that, we've got to go there in order for it to happen, which most of us are
Yeah.
used to, because we're spending many of our days, thinking about what's ahead or what's behind, and not being fully present here now. So that's what I've been doing lately, is inviting people into this pilgrimage close to home. And I lead a little group called Church of the Wild, Two Rivers. And we meet monthly and do exactly that. We sit together with the practice then of everybody on their own, wandering, listening to all of the beauty around us, and then bringing that back to share.
I think that's wonderful, and I also really appreciate this intention, right? It's not that we need to go somewhere to experience this, is that we need to kind of go within, right? Like I don't need to go to a certain destination. That's not the journey. It's about the journey, right? And that journey
Exactly.
starts with this going inward, and sort of I always look at it as for me it's like busyness, you know. I think that
Mm-hmm.
there's just busyness around me all the time, and I'm not even sure, I don't think I know how to, I don't know what busyness is. To me, busyness is literally this like energy, and I feel it all the time, and then it's just around me, and it comes from all these different sources, but it's just essentially everything that's not really mine. And it's a lot, and I think I've started to see over the years with my meditation practice and going deeper and deeper into my spirituality, how I can really, just how I can separate that. You know, I can understand this is just busyness, and I don't need to get sucked
Mm.
into it. I don't need to be it. I can still be grounded in my truth and my lived experiences and my realities as well. And I think that's why I appreciate this intention, because yes, we're always, this busyness is always telling us we have to go here and we have to go there to experience the world, to experience life, even to make a change. We talk about how do we be more human for the greater good. We're taught that there's, you know, a course you'll have to take, or this, or you have, you know,
Yes.
but maybe it's not. Maybe there is no, maybe it's just I need to just turn inwards and really understand my connection to my inner humanity, and how that becomes my outer humanity, my collective humanity, and my contribution to collective humanity.
Oh, Vanessa, you said so many things there that I want to put like exclamation marks on. So this could be like a week of conversation here. But one thing I want to say is the title of the book, Earth and Soul. That is exactly what I am trying to encourage, is this interior journey, right, to the depths of who we truly are, not who we need to become, but who we are, who we have been given to be. And so reclaiming that truth, which we probably held many facets of as small children, that got layered over through, I don't know, various aspects of our culture and our upbringing, and, you know, perhaps through no fault of anyone's, but just because of the world in which we live. So one journey is that depth, that interior journey. And then the other journey is that reconnection to living world around us. And of course, the irony of it is they aren't two separate journeys. They are woven together.
Mm-hmm.
And as you deepen this sense of who I am called to be, who I really truly am, you are deepening your connection with the world around us, because we are part of that world. And it's not just around us, it's within us, and it is us. So these are the paradoxes, you know, that we live in. We try to use this language to make meaning and try to understand what our, you know, what we are called to consider. And yet the language is very limiting. So I really do applaud and agree with my sense of what you were saying, which is this deepening, this soul journey of deepening, and this connection to all the incredible, you know, beauty, awe, wonder of which we are and always have been a part, and cannot, from which we cannot be separated. So that's one of the things that you said. And I think I've lost many of the others, but that for sure is one I just really find so compelling in what you've said.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. And, I think that what we've sort of been discussing has really been the topic of what this show is about. It's, these challenges of being human, the human challenges in today's world and how we challenge ourselves to be more human for the greater good. And so I'm curious, maybe we can talk about it now in a more direct way to you. What are these human challenges in today's world? Why? Like, why is it so hard to be human? And then how can we challenge ourselves to be more
Mhm.
human for the greater good?
Yeah. Well, I think for me, what I feel is that we have created a story of separation. And that story of separation is kind of writ large in our culture, and it shows itself in language that we use, metaphors we use, and in actions that we take that we consider to be normal. And part of what we have done, now this was not always true, and it is not true of everyone now. So I want to be clear about that I'm speaking of kind of predominant Western culture. And there are many indigenous and land-based peoples who do not have this sense of separation. The language that we use about separation doesn't even resonate with the people who have cultivated over generations and generations this inextricable link to the forest or the river or all of the plants and animals around them. But we have the story of otherness that we could go back and probably have some hypotheses about when that came to be, but it's not always been true in our history. When we go way back, our ancestors had to know and be deeply connected to the place in which they were living, or they would not have been alive to be our ancestors. We wouldn't be here if they didn't know where to find water that was safe to drink, if they didn't understand how food, nuts and berries and plants were so generously given by the forest or the prairie around them. They had to know when those were available and what was safe to eat. And so there was this knowing, this liveliness of the senses. And when we other ourselves, then we don't think we need to know at that sensory, visceral, heart level. We think that knowing is about an intelligence that is logical and rational and that names, clearly, and divides and subdivides other beings so that we can understand them. So I think our human challenge is to understand that being human is not about being separate. It's not about being superior to, over, and above. And it's not about using. Being human is about being a part of that incredible family tree that is this 13.8 billion year family tree. And we are a leaf on it, but we are not the tree. And that we depend, as a leaf on that tree, we depend on all of the interconnections that are there. We can't generate water. We cannot generate photosynthesis and make food. We are so dependent on that whole tree. And so I love the fact that we are. And I also think it's so important that we hold that in awe and wonder, the amazing way in which we are alive because of other beings, and this incredible beauty that is given to manifest this amazing tree of the living world.
Thank you so much for saying those words. And I think I really hope that they do invite in our listeners and our viewers to consider that, consider how, in the ways, have we accidentally created that separation? And I'm curious to you, how do we challenge ourselves now to be more human when we're, especially, I mean, think of the way modern society is, tech and everything. It's just, sometimes it just feels like it's just more things to continue to keep us separated. And so would welcome your thoughts on that.
So I think it's about intention and attention. So for me, there needs to be an intention to say that my technology that I love, my great cell phone and my scrolling past whatever, that isn't all there is. So there has to be an intention to open up to more than that. And the attention itself, I think, comes from, I've already said it before, let's just go back to our senses. I have a chapter in the book called Coming to Our Senses. And I really mean that in every sense of that word. So that's a connection. And it's a connection to awe and wonder and delight and joy. And yes, it's also a connection to heartbreak and loss and grief. Because when we open to what is really going on around us, we cannot help but be heartbroken. There is just immense grief when we read about these tiny monkeys falling from trees in Mexico because they are so dehydrated and so hot. They are just falling dead to the ground. And that is heartbreaking. That is heartbreaking. And we have to open to hold that. This is this idea of looking with great love and compassion on loss alongside of accepting that in that, alongside that, within that is also this rich and vibrant life. That is a big heart effort, right? I mean, that is like more space in the heart, more space in the heart. Our mind can't do it because our mind goes on a hamster wheel and our mind is like, we got to fix that. I've got to fix it. Oh, and then I have to fix that. But wait, I don't know how to do it. It's so complex. It's overwhelming. It's way beyond my capacity. It is. It is beyond each of our individual roles to do that. And that's not what we're called to do. We have that soul journey, that gift that we have been given. And it is our responsibility to give that gift to the world. And when I do that and you do that, then we can also recognize that it's not only humans who are doing that, but Earth herself has amazing wisdom and capacity and vibrancy. And Earth is leaning toward healing and resilience and regrowth. And so to me, that's where hope comes in. The hope is not that I can figure it out. The hope is I could figure out what's mine to do. And just like you are inviting people into this conversation, and that is yours to do, to hold the space for people from various places to come and share. And when we all do the things that are ours to do, then we can see, I think, more clearly the possibility that is around us, even if it is well beyond our understanding.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for those words. And I think it's a really beautiful closing message on how we can come together and how, when we do that individually and with one another, we see the world as like Mother Earth is doing the same thing. So thank you so much for coming on the show. Maybe you can close off by telling us where we can find your book, and also if you have any other new works that we should be waiting for.
Sure. Thank you for that. Well, my website is leahrampy.com. And so there's a lot about Earth and Soul. And pretty soon we'll have this podcast on that website. So that will be available for you to watch another time. And the book itself, you could order through any of your local bookstores, or those online providers also have it available. I have just finished the manuscript and we're in the final proofreading for a book called Discovering the Spiritual Wisdom of Trees. And that I have written with, I've already mentioned my colleague, Beth Norcross. So she and I co authored that book. It will be published by Broadleaf Books in the spring of 2026. Are we in 2024? 25, giving a year away. So it'll be published in the spring, but it's actually available for pre-order right now on Barnes and Noble and Amazon and probably other places. So we're excited about that because it's a class we've been teaching for some years, and we think trees are pretty amazing.
Awesome. Amazing. Well, thank you so much. I invite everyone here to visit Leah's website and pre-order the next book. Thank you so much, Leah.
Thank you, Vanessa. It's been a real honor.